I read something interesting about you, and I don't know if it's an erroneous quote or not, but I believe that music was your first passion, and actually you said that acting was a very arduous art form for you to get into. Why was that the case?
I think because music, as a boy, it just came intuitively very, very easy to me. When I started to seriously act in the theater, it was not what I would call necessarily as simple a pursuit as I thought it would be, because I had a great instinct for acting. But I worked for 10 years in the theater before I made a film, and I mean I think acting, unlike music is a very liberating experience, and I think acting is psychologically a very consuming endeavor. So I mean, for me, I mean, music was just incredibly liberating, and I found that acting, although I love storytelling,
right.
but it certainly is not nearly as liberating as music, and because of the complexity of different behavioral issues and patterns you have to explore, it's one of the most challenging things that I found to do in my life, certainly.
Mm-hmm. I think I spoke to, or we spoke to, I believe it was Joe Pantoliano, who said that at the beginning of his career, acting was very difficult for him and arduous, as you're describing, because he had the need to throw in everything but the kitchen sink, to kind of overanalyze. But as time went on and his career advanced, he became a much more efficient actor, and he learned how to pick his battles with his characters. Does that speak to you at all?
Very much, and essentially, I mean, the task is really a part of storytelling, and I mean, the process of developing anything is just an absolute joy, as long as you love to tell stories and want to investigate stories with people, and I predicate a lot of my life and the great experiences that I've had really to do with people. I mean, the beauty of acting is that you are always in relationships.
Right.
And it's very powerful in that if you're working in a creative relationship, it's not necessarily as emotionally innovating as a love relationship.
Yeah.
It's just a creative relationship.
Even so, I want to ask you about some of those creative relationships, and then I know that Jerry and I both had some questions about movies as well.
Quick question about, just because we're talking about the acting, I just want to know, do you still look at it as a blessing and a curse? Because at one time you're quoted, as a profession, you don't recommend it at all. Do you still feel that way?
Well, I say that only to novices that in a way have a very Pollyannic view of the life of an actor.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it is one of the most precipitous professions one could ever attempt to be part of, short of being a professional athlete. I mean, it is a highly unpredictable circumstance,
right.
And I think if you have the fortitude to live with that kind of insecurity and know within your heart the reasons you do it, I think it can have tremendous upside, both creatively and in some cases even monetarily. But the point is that it's a very, very it's a large choice to make,
yeah.
and I know even when I was a student, I was in school with doctors and psychologists and athletes and people that never even dreamt about being actors, but they wanted the experience of being in a situation where they really had to open up and reveal themselves, and they wanted to, in a sense, use that to actually build their own self-esteem.
Right.
So I never have ever underestimated the importance of theater and the importance of theater as a community effort, because it is one of the most important things for people, number one, to learn how to communicate, to articulate, and also to express themselves and actually understand that they're okay within themselves, within the world. So I mean, in that sense, I think it's very, very underestimated of how important it is for people from all different pursuits in life. I honestly think the theater should be made mandatory in all schools. And the reason I say that is because it forces the individual to actually enter the arena and actually be openly criticized for being who he is, what he is, and everything he stands for. And I think that is probably one of the most honest, naked, and, if you will, moral positions that people can be put in. And I think it actually can build a person's self-esteem and their own values by being put in the arena with their own colleagues and comrades who not necessarily may judge them, but will force them to confront themselves. That in itself can build human values. So I really think it's a very important part of our lives that often gets shoved aside. And in fact, the more and more we've become digitalized in every aspect of our lives right now, the theater has gotten less and less important. And I think that that's becoming a smaller issue in our lives, when in fact it should become a greater pursuit.
I think you're.
Does that make any sense? I don't know.
No,
it does.
Because I just want to. I think what you're saying, because you use the word naked, I think we have forgotten as a people what it's like to live without a net. We have the security, and we need to get rid of that security. We really,
very well put.
We really need to be naked in that sense. Because it's something I think about a lot. Get rid of the safety net, and it could make all the difference. Especially if you're talking about schools, I couldn't think of a better time period to do it.
Yeah, and I just remember that as a kid, being in with people who were much older than I am, but they wanted that in a way test of being able to put themselves in an arena and actually be openly picked apart. And I really believe it can build not just esteem, but build one's own confidence in one's own values, you know.
And it is about self-discovery, and it's also about empathizing with others, which I think is something that's badly needed.
It's so huge. It's a huge issue. I see it especially among young people.
Yes.
I mean, the fragility of a young person's mind and psyche at that time in their lives is monumental, and if they don't have that esteem, and because the public school system, the educational system today is so huge, so overwrought with lack of focus, because teachers are stressed beyond hope. I mean, it's pathetic what goes on in public schools today. And the point is that if they don't get that kind of attention, not necessarily love, but that kind of attention and awareness, it's not serving a young person at all, you know.
Right. Well, speaking of teachers, when I look at some of the great directors that you've worked with, I always associate them with great teachers, like Lumet or Frankenheimer or Ridley Scott, and I'm wondering how directors like that challenge you and kind of help you bring out your full potential.
You know, it's amazing, but what I've always believed about New York per se, and places like New York and London, is that there's always been great acting pools that came out of New York and London, and people have always said, "Oh, look at the actors we produced in the 40s, 50s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, whatever." But the point is that the reason we had great actors that came out of New York is that we had great teachers. And that is never, it's not brought up enough. But in fact, if you go back to the early stages, Sidney Lumet, for example, his uncle was Jacob Adler, who was with the Yiddish theater, who then, emigrated to the group theater. You have people like Stella Adler that went back to Moscow with Clifford Odets. They studied Stanislavski's The Moscow Art Theater. They built, in other words, the American theater. The American theater was built by teachers. Yeah. And when you're with people like Sidney Lumet or Frankenheimer was a different school altogether because he was the school of hard knocks. Ridley Scott was just a photography genius as a boy. He was a genius photographer as a kid. So that you have the three different people there. But like Sidney Lumet is a true intellectual. Frankenheimer was a bit of an intellectual himself, but he actually was a filmmaker that actually failed and succeeded constantly because of the tremendous risks that he put himself at with film. But the point is that all those men have a seedling of teaching genius within them. But in fact, I mean, in America and London, what gave birth to great actors in the acting community was the phenomenal teaching energy that existed in these communities. And you know, I mean, I know there's great teachers around today as well. But I mean, when I was a young actor, I mean, you always knew that there were mentors such as Lee Strasberg, Uta Hagen, Sanford Meisner, Mira Rostova, whom I studied with for 25 years. I mean, there were legends around that you could go to actually, you know, listen to and watch and observe. And the point is that you cannot underestimate the energy of those people and what they gave and what they fostered. They are the, if you will, they are the godparents, if you will, of so many actors. And you only have to go back and look in their bios to find out just how influential, say, 10, 20, 30 people were to the entire world.
Well, they've nurtured the greatest actors we've had the past 30, 40 years and beyond. Yeah. Tell me about, Jerry, actually, you had a question about some of the roles that Mr. Assante.
You have played some of the most iconic roles in your career. You played Bugsy Siegel, you played Mike Hammer, and and I just want to know and John Gotti, probably the quintessential John Gotti performance. As far as I'm concerned, when I think of Gotti, that's what I think of. That
Thank you very much.
I really like that movie. We all liked that movie, actually, in my family. We thought it was very well done and very accurate.
Makes you think. Makes you think about the people in your life. And I think of Neil. And if he was sitting there right now, what he'd say to me? He'd say, John, what's it about? What's life about? You don't go through it as a man's man. You say, suck it up. Take the fall. Do the time. That's made you who you are. That makes you what you are. How long have we been around this thing of ours? This Cosa Nostra. 120 years. I mean, what's it about? It's about the rules. Parameters. When you take the beating for the friend, you don't run, you don't lay down. You don't betray who you are. What you are.
Self-esteem.
Self-esteem is basic. You pick it up in the street. That goes with the street. You got to remember Angie here. I love this guy. I loved him. And he was stupid. He never listened to me. He always wanted the goddamn dope money. He never rolled. Do you know that? He never rolled. My brother Gene, Joey DeMig, they don't roll. They're doing 1,000 years now. They don't roll. They don't rat white. That's the rule. You don't break. You don't rat. Basic rules. Gives you a little power, right? Not the kind of power these feds have. God forbid, right? God forbid we pull their chain in public, right? Fucking dress better than them, they take it personal, like it's a fucking vendetta, right? They're supposed to act better than the rest of us. Just want me to be something I wasn't even born to be.
And I just want to know, because you're watching recently, like American Gangster and also Hoffa, what attracts you to this tough guy persona?
You know what? I tell you something. It's like I entered the back door backwards. I don't know. The thing is, I don't know. I mean, I was basically, as a young person, I was quite not even into that persona or those kind of characters. If you go back and look at my earlier films, but in fact. When I did start to be asked to play roles like Mike Hammer and stuff, it just, the amount of material that came my way was quite shocking in that genre.
Right.
And actually some of the better scripts I got were of that genre. Mm-hmm. And, I mean, I was around a long time before I even did a film like Q&A. I was around forever. I was 39 years old when I did Q&A.
Right.
and then Gotti, I think I was 46. I mean, those roles came to me much later, but in fact, I think it was just because the material. If you look at the scripts, they're phenomenal. I mean, the Q&A was written by Edwin Torres, who was the former Supreme Court Justice of Manhattan, and it was recrafted by Sidney Lumet. Gotti was written by Steve Shagan and Vincent Patrick, two of the best writers that ever were in the film industry. So I'm saying the material that I was given, Mike Hammer was written by Mickey Spillane and then recrafted by Larry Cohen. But the point is, the material I was given was superb.
Right.
And I predicate most of anything I do, and believe me, I've done my share of clunkers. But the point is that just to make a living. But the point is that script to me is everything. And when you're working with writers of that kind of caliber, I mean, it's a dream. It's a dream come true. And if you go back, even if you go back to early Hollywood in the last 50 years, look at any of the great genre gangster films. They're beautifully written films.
They are, absolutely.
You cannot ever underestimate the writing, in that there'd be many actors who could succeed in those films because the writing is so good.
Yeah. And the characters are so rich. I mean,
yeah, they are.
These characters that Jerry mentioned. I mean, there's so much to absorb yourself in with these guys.
Yeah, and it's I mean, it was a fabulous circumstance to do that script with Sidney Lumet. But again, to me, script is ironclad. I mean, it's what drives me. It's what I look for. And the truth is, if I told you how many scripts I have to read through to get to one that I even want to remotely gamble on, it's unbelievable. I mean, you cannot believe the amount of material you have to pour through to find something and say, "Wow, this guy hit this right on the nose."
Well, speaking of rich and surprising characters, your character in The Line definitely is a surprising turn, and I'm wondering how the project came to you.
It came totally out of the blue. Arliss Fraser contacted me about it, and when I read it, and what attracted me to The Line is that basically almost all the characters in the film are playing a role. It's a very interesting film. It's about deep cover operatives who are actually trying to move in this very murky, dark, really brutal world effectively. And I thought it was very intelligently written. I thought it was a very bleak, unromanticized look at those kind of men that go into that kind of world with certain expectations and have them completely shattered.
Yeah.
This is happening to a lot of young men today that are in Iraq and Afghanistan. I mean, this is the real reality of that kind of world is not unlike the reality of what's happening now in Afghanistan. I mean, it is brutal. And the thing is that what I liked about the script is that it explored in a way the emotional desolation of a choice that somehow men in their own macho way romanticize. Yeah. And if you look at all the characters in that, they're all incredibly disillusioned men.
Yes.
They're shattered. They're all shattered men. And I thought it was an interesting piece of writing. I know R. Ellis Fraser is the son of a U.S. Army general. So I think Fraser has a very keen insight into this world. It's not something it's just he's writing off the top of his head. He really has been around that world. And
we had him on the show, and he
did he open up about that at all?
He did. He talked a little bit about that. He also talked about loving you. So he's crazy about you, as we all are.
Yeah, we are.
Thank you, Roma.
It's a great film, and it does stand out because it is about something, and it's eye-opening and it's intelligent. And all you have to do is see the cast that was assembled to know that this is a quality piece of work. What a cast!
Yeah, it's a beautiful cast, and it was a great privilege to be with everybody. And again, I mean, I just thought there was a vulnerability to the writing that you don't usually see in films that, this could be done a completely different way too, but I think because of the sensitivity of the people involved in it, it becomes a more vulnerable story.
Yeah. Do you have take The Line, for instance, or another project if you'd like, is there a moment that you can think of, a kind of aha moment when you know that you have that character?
Well, I mean, certainly in film, every now and then you might be able to tap into something that you didn't know about, a certain resonance maybe you found, and that certainly is a beautiful experience. The thing I'm inclined, the one thing that actors, as you go through your life as an actor, the one thing you want is to be evoked, because basically the more you work at acting, you know that you have a certain amount of responsibility. You have to carry a role. That comes with the territory. That's your job. But the point is that you scream inside to be evoked by some voice that speaks to you, whether it's a director or even the tiniest piece of direction that just taps something inside of you that you didn't know was that secretive or unexplored.
Yeah.
And when somebody can give you that, to go into something within yourself that's a voice within yourself that's not been explored, even for a moment, it's very beautiful, because you're experiencing a vulnerability about yourself that you didn't know was there. And that is the thing I think all genuine actors inside are screaming for and do not get enough of. Because in the creative world we're in today, things are moving so fast and at such lightning speed that more often than not, you don't find that experience. And you hear of certain directors like Mike Lee and some directors that'll work on a project for 6 months. It's because they want to get to that stuff.
Right.
And more often than not, even the speed at which they finally have to work anyway, they never get to the stuff anyway. But they are grappling with the process purposely because they want to get that stuff, and that's the hardest stuff to get.
It's that moment of transcendence that you're talking about. Right?
Yeah, then that's what all actors dream about, But again, it certainly helps to be with someone who's aware enough to be able to tap into that transcendence, and that takes a big head and a patient head, and also somebody who has tremendous soul and tremendous observance about life.
Yes.
I always am a little disillusioned that in Hollywood generally they're knocking guys out of the loop once they're in their 40s and 50s, when in fact, if you go back into the history of Hollywood and look at the directors like John Ford, John Huston, Howard Hawks, all these guys, including people like Frankenheimer, they hit their stride in their 50s and 60s.
That's right.
They really hit their stride because, in fact, it takes a lifetime to be able to synthesize a moment.
But the MBAs running the studios don't understand that. Those guys in their 20s don't understand that.
Yeah, that life itself, the experience of life, to be able to synthesize a moment to say, we don't need this, this, and this. What we need is that light in the corner with that man sitting in the chair over there. And that's the whole proscenium.
Yeah.
And the point is that's the synthesis of life experience. And that I think is what makes the film world and the theater world so interesting. To me, it's all about how much a person has lived.
That's just it. And what do they want to say? And a lot of times the younger directors, they don't know what they want to say.
Yeah, what if a 20-year-old or a 20, you don't have the experience yet really till you're in your 40s, 50s.
Yeah, there's very few that you meet that have a special intuition or gift. Very, very rarely, Mm-hmm. I shot a film in Romania 2 years ago called California Dream, and I worked with this young Romanian director who sadly was killed right after we made the film. And he was 27 years old, and he was a genius.
He was killed?
He was killed right after we made the film.
That film got the best review I've read in the New York Times. I think it came out finally in this country earlier this year.
Yeah.
That film got a superb review. Oh God.
It was very sad, but that kid had genius, and it was so rare. But I knew him for quite a while, and when we finally made the film, the film was made for nothing in Romania. But the point is that his vast understanding of human nature for such a young person was so rare. I mean, just really rare. That was one of the few times I worked with a young person that I thought this kid's got it in spades.
Right.
But again, I mean, it's just a thing. But in answer to your question, I mean, it is an issue. It always disturbs me that it's sometimes a lifetime of experience, or those are the people that can really evoke those transcendent moments.
Yeah, and the line is the closing night film of the New York International Latino Film Festival. And before I let you go, let me ask you about the film festival experience and your thoughts on the value of film festivals.
Well, last October I was given the privilege of being the president of the jury at Moldova, Eastern Ukraine, which is the International Film Festival of Ukraine, and I watched 68 films in 1 week from all over the world. 40 of them were medium films, about 40 of them were medium, about 10 were shorts, and 10 were features. But the point is that the relevance of the film festival itself is that it's a cultural platform where the international community really finally has a voice. And what I was really, really taken with, especially over in that part of the world, is that the films that I voted for the most were coming out of Afghanistan, Iran, Serbia, Croatia, Russia, because the issues that people, one of the films was actually a Muslim film that came out of, I believe, Serbia. But the point is that the issues that they were grappling with were so critical, were so important, were so urgent and current that a Hollywood film at that festival would have withdrawn itself because it would have no proscenium. These films were about really important human issues that were, tremendously at stake. And the film that I remember voting for was a young girl named Hana Makbalbouf from Iran and Afghanistan, in a film called Buddha Collapsed from Shame, about the children in Afghanistan that are manipulated by the Taliban. Absolutely shocking, terrifying film, all performed by 3-year-old kids that she directed. And, completely Oscar-worthy. But the point is that the purpose of a film festival is the cultural relevance of the voices within it. You have a very good film festival at Lincoln Center, the Human Rights Film Festival. Some of the films that come out of that festival are just mind-blowing. And I'm not knocking, the more commercial festivals such as Cannes and the big festivals that we have here in Toronto, whatever. I'm not at all, but I'm just saying that the power of the film festival around the world, when you see them coming from places where there is no voice, where you have completely unobserved talent, when they finally get that moment and they get that platform and they take it, it's mind-blowing. Well, it's just a mind-blowing experience because you realize, my God, I didn't know that there were so many incredible, relevant stories that will never, ever be seen in a theater because no distributor is going to risk whether or not they're going to get an audience. The only miracle we have today is YouTube and the fact that it may go to DVD and get a global audience.
Yeah,
because most of those films that I saw will never be seen.
And that's a shame because they're films that the makers feel a tremendous urge to make.
Yeah.
They have to be made, and they have to be seen, too, and I think that these festivals are most valuable for those kinds of films.
I'm still waiting for California Dreaming. I've just heard nothing but great things about this film, and it's sadly something that's not going to be
Yeah, and oddly enough, it actually did well in Europe for what it was, and it could have run here, but they were afraid to distribute it. But again, I think the relevance of the film festival in general that I've experienced is that it gives a voice to people that will probably be never heard again, and the beauty of it is that it also shows in film the imagination that people have. It's just staggering what the medium is capable of. So I mean, to me, and I'm not saying, by the way, that there should be a film festival in every town in America, but I do believe that the ones that I've attended, have incredible. To me, there will always be unforgettable experiences because of what I was exposed to.
Well, let me tell you, I get so, or we both do, we get so excited and so passionate about discussing this art form that we love so much, like we've done with you tonight. We can talk to you forever, let me tell you.
We really could.
Well, we're crazy about you. I told everyone that, I'm speaking to Armand Assante tonight, and everybody just went crazy. They all love you.
No, thank you.
But I appreciate your time so much.
It was a great pleasure for me as well. And anytime you want to rap, man, call me up. I'll be happy to talk to you.
All right, buddy. Let's do it.
All right.
Hey, wonderful. Thank you.
Bye-bye, sir.
Thank you, man. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.